Good evening, councillors. Welcome to an ordinary meeting of the council on the 24th of March 2025. I've got a couple of opening remarks, so if I could go through those first. And I've discussed these with the mayor, so some of these are from himself, who isn't here this evening. So first, we had a very successful volunteer evening on the 26th of February. It was good to see a number of councillors in attendance to recognise the efforts of volunteers in our community. Awards were presented on the evening by the mayor, with a civic award being made this year to David Batchelor. The interim grants committee meeting was held on the 3rd of March, and we will be considering the recommendations from that meeting later this evening as part of tonight's agenda. The Dover District Tourism Networking event was held in the Guildhall last week. I'd like to give appreciation and thanks to Councillor Black for his role in supporting Dover District Council to make this happen. The attendance was very good. I'm sure you'll be giving some feedback in your spot later on. And one thing that certainly the Town Council proved was its ability to run those sorts of events very successfully. Hopefully you agree with that.
Yes.
And finally, there is a parking strategy meeting with DDC this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Can as many STC councillors attend to give our views on DDC's parking strategy? This can either be in person at the DDC Council chamber at Whitfield or via the online meeting invite that I think we've already received. Yeah. Thank you very much. So moving on to agenda item 2, can I have any apologies for absences received?
Yes, we've received apologies from Councillor Gray and Councillor Whitney for valid commitments, Councillor Carter and Councillor Danielle Carter as they are on leave, Councillor Marie and Councillor Morehouse, it's just arrived, yeah. Councillor Marie for work commitments.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest, is to receive any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda this evening. Councillor Black.
Yeah, I'm going to have an interest, it's not a pecuniary, in item 20. But I'll, assuming that it comes up, as the grants.
Okay, thank you. Any others? No. Okay, we move on to agenda item 4, and that's minutes of the full council meeting and committees. The first attachment 1, which is to approve the minutes of the full council meeting of STC held on the 24th of February 2025, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in the agenda. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you. This is with reference to STC 022518, alleged corruption at STC.
Yeah.
And as I remember it, and I'm sure it can be checked on the videos, it was agreed that there would be a note made that the councillor in question did say at this meeting on that date of the town council that there was no evidence for corruption. And it was agreed, as I remember it, by the town clerk who was recording the minutes that would be included in the minutes. And I would stress the importance of that, because to be accused of corruption is extremely serious, particularly in a public place such as Facebook. So I really do think that we do need to have a record that that councillor said there was no evidence for corruption.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and I recall that as well, so we can make sure that that's amended. Councillor Kingston.
Thank you. I'd just like to make a general comment. I noted on reading these draft minutes that on quite a lot of the items there were quite a substantial group of abstentions. In some cases, this may reflect a genuine difference of views, and that's fine. But I do believe in many cases it arises from the fact that reports reach us and we are asked to take decisions which have not been properly researched, properly thought through and properly presented. And I do hope that as we move forward, that the quality of the papers coming to this council will be improved so that we find it easier to reach an informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very good point, and I will be bringing that up against one of the agenda items later on this evening, and let's see if the spirit of that is carried through at that point. Anybody else? Councillor Black?
Yes, if we look at, let me just get the number, 022510, updates from councillors. I did say that I would come back to you with what the Tourism Forum had said. I can do it here, I can do it later on in my report on the Tourism Forum. It's up to you, but I've just got a few points to make.
If you can do that later, if that's okay.
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Morehouse?
Yes, STC 022507. Two things. The potential breach of the planning permission identified at the Montague Place. That's referring to the land grab between Smockville Lane and St Bart's Road. But it's entirely separate to the tree maintenance issue, in which I'll be discussing, or having a meeting, a site meeting with the voluntary tree warden in May. And secondly, DDC approved the budget for 2025-2026 with a 2.18%. It was actually 2.98%. I did actually relay that at the meeting because it was in line with what the previous administration were increasing council tax by.
Thank you. So can I just go back to the first point? Are you asking for that to be separated out as two separate updates at the last meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
the first one should be separated out as two separate updates, and the second one it's a figure anomaly.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, on 022501 about Fellowship Walk, I did at last meeting speak about adverse possession, and the mayor said that he would raise that matter, but the minutes record that an email had already been sent. So I would just like confirmation that this whole subject of adverse possession may be getting the boundaries properly set out so we know exactly where the boundary is, and progressing, if the boundary has been transgressed, then moving forward with an adverse possession injunction.
Thank you. Any more? No. Is anybody happy to propose these minutes subject to the comments that have been raised? Councillor Pennington, anybody happy to second the minutes? Councillor Franklin, would you like to vote on those? Okay. Thank you very much. That's passed. The next set of attachment 2 are the minutes of the planning committee meeting held on the 10th of February 2025. Are there any comments on those? If not, could I take someone who happy to propose them? Councillor Franklin, second. Councillor Wiles, and those who want to vote. We've got 2 abstentions. Thank you very much. And the next set is to receive the minutes, and this is attachment 3, the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting held on the 19th of February. Any comments on those?
No.
Yeah.
FGP 0225.7 mesh cushion. Can't believe. Do you know what? There used to be a cushion on that seat when I was mayor back in 1998. And he said, I hope you're going to support me during your civic year. I said, if you put a cushion there, so the church provided the cushion, and I know, but it's the church, but I don't mind, but I'm just saying, it seemed to last it quite well, because it used to be quite hard sitting there before you had the cushion, so anyway.
Thank you very much.
I did support him very well that year.
Maybe the current mayor is slightly fragile with these things, I'm not sure. But Is somebody happy to propose those minutes?
No.
Councillor Green and Councillor Wild seconding and voting. We have one abstention. Two abstentions. Thank you. And the final set, attachment 4, the minutes of the Monks Wall Nature Reserve Committee meeting held on the 2nd of December. Any comments? No, somebody? Yes,
I
Councillor.
see that, open up a separate bank account. Did I see that? I just wonder whether I want to open up a separate bank account with the Monks Wall.
Sorry, and
I've got read on minutes that it's going to open up a separate bank.
Okay,
I believe it's not a separate bank account, it's a savings account or a noted account within the town council's, within the town council's account. So it's not, it's Chloe, you might have a better idea of what,
I can
Jill
find
was,
out for you.
yes,
Well,
so
it's
this,
just
yes.
that normally they apply for grants and say £83,000 and then it's spent. So there shouldn't be a lot of money in there to actually save, that's all I'm saying. It should be in and out. Otherwise, if you go for grants and you've got £60,000 sitting in your account, you say, well, you're not getting a grant, you've got enough money in your account. So it should be in and out, so I just wondered why.
so we'll seek clarification and
Thank you.
then email
Yeah.
members after the meeting. Okay, thank you. Somebody have to propose those minutes? Councillor Pennington, seconding. Councillor Mallet, and voting. 3 abstentions. Thank you very much. 3 indeed. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 5, payment schedules. And the first one, which is attachment 5A, is to receive and approve a schedule of payment for mid-March 2025, totalling £35,556.86. And this schedule was reviewed by Finance and General Purposes before this meeting. Any comments on that? No, is anybody happy to propose them? Councillor Pennington, seconding. Councillor Wilson, and a vote. That's unanimous, thank you. And payment schedule at attachment 5B is for the end of March 2025, and these are for a couple of additional items which haven't been in front of FMGP, and they total £11,559.33.
There's been an amendment, so an additional payment, so now the total is £12,866.42, and that's for 3 payments. Members of the details.
Are we happy to propose those unless there's any comments on it? Councillor Franklin's proposing. I'm happy to second them. And vote. Thank you very much. Moving on to 5C, this is Council to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise the end of March 2025 payment schedules on bank line. Do we have anybody who would like to nominate themselves to do that? Limited in terms of those in the room. Councillor Franklin, and on the basis the only other person, unless Councillor Wiles would like, unless Councillor Wiles would like to do it. Thank you. And then 5D, Council to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise mid-April 2025 payment schedules on bank line. I'm happy to do that. Second person. Councillor Franklin's
Yeah.
almost there.
You can get for the river, which you've got here.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 6, public participation. This is a 20-minute session set aside for members of the public to make representations at the meeting in respect of the business on the agenda and other matters if time permits. Individual representation should not exceed 5 minutes. Written notice of the desire to exercise the right to speak, together with a topic to be addressed, must be given to the town clerk prior to noon on the day of a meeting. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak?
We have one request.
Clerk.
I'm really with
Oh, you
you.
have to stay where you are?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I'm just thinking that we need to address the usage of riding bikes and e-scooters over the forecourt,
Yep.
especially during events, because I've done the whole event the weekend just gone, and I've had multiple people literally flying through the forecourt, crowd full of people, but they're still flying through the forecourt on e-scooters and bikes. Admittedly, most of the ones that I saw, I asked them to dismount until they got the other end, which most of them did. There wasn't a couple that sort of got out of my eye line and then remounted before they actually got round. But when I'm quite clever, I like to think I am, so I actually looped round and witnessed one of them getting back on. So I reapproached him and asked him to dismount. Very nicely, or kind of. So he then dismounted again and carried on walking with his bike. I just think that we need to sort of, step one, put some signs up to say that bikes and e-scooters shouldn't be formally ridden on the forecourt, especially during events.
Thank you, Clive. That is a very valid point to make. And first of all, thank you for all that you do, because you're usually ahead of me whenever I come down to events near the Forecourt or in the Guildhall. So thanks
And
for all
I
you
have
do.
had various members of the public come to me complaining about it,
Yeah.
saying that it should be raised with the council, which is what sort of persuaded me to do it tonight.
So what we'll do is I will refer this on to the property manager to consider your request, and he will come back to you with a view in terms of what will be sensible.
Would that be like a sandwich issue though, because isn't the Forecourt owned by DDC?
It's our responsibility in terms of the management of the Forecourt.
So that is something that we could attack
Yeah.
at some angle or other.
Yeah, so the property manager will look at this and he will come back to you. Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 7, verbal report from our district councillors, or councillor in this case, on matters relating to Sandwich.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. First of all, the planning application 23 of Leap 00176, 57 New Street, Sandwich. Application is for works to remove historic fabric in the interior of the listed building. These are covered by the listed status of the building, which is why consent is required. There is a need to ensure that all fabric capable of being reused is securely retained rather than being discarded. In addition, there is a need to ensure that the application adequately provides details of structural scaffold. Unfortunately, the submission did not provide sufficient information to enable the application to be determined. The enforcement officer conducted a site meeting, provided the agent with guidance and advised him to engage a qualified structural engineer to assist in providing the relevant details. And furthermore, it goes on to advise that they have received no further information to date. This is as promised. I said I would approach DDC planning on 57 New Street following following the owner's presentation at the last meeting. Secondly, I go on to the full council meeting that I attended on 26th of February, in which the budget was discussed. I voted against the budget on the basis of it included the parking loss revenue. I'll use the word loss in inverted commas, because I think they actually gain more out of the events that they lose. Following that, I attended a meeting with the DDC leader, Councillor Mallet, the DDC deputy leader, and 2 of the officers, along with Councillor Friend, and we had a discussion about the meeting, the parking charge compensation scheme. I don't believe that we were listened to particularly well, so we decided to call in when this was discussed at the council meeting, we decided to call this in, which we did, the hearing was last Monday, and the vote was in favour to refer it back to Cabinet in order to hopefully force a U-turn on this policy. I have been in contact with the officers following the meeting on the 3rd of March to try to obtain some form of clarification, because a lot of the wording is very ambiguous. So here's one. So the proposed charge for off-street parking will be £75 as an administration fee to include 10 parking places. That incorporates Market Street. The proposed charge for on-street parking will be off-street parking, referring to the car parks obviously, but not the Guildhall car park, because the Guildhall car park on Sundays is free. The proposed charge for the on-street parking, i.e. Market Street, will be £75 as an administration charge, and it will include 5 parking bays. The daily charge has been assessed for the off-street parking is, as it says on the meter, £10.80 per day. And they've now assessed that the daily charge for the linear on-street parking, i.e. Market Street, will be £12 per day. What is not clear is how the cost allocation relates to the additional bays. So for example, the Grassley area on the quay is assessed as having 40 bays. So I've asked, would the cost be £75 as an administration fee to include 10 bays, with the additional 30 bays being charged at £10.80 per day? That isn't clear. It's very ambiguous. The wording does not suggest that is the policy, or whether that's the policy or not. If this is the policy, then the net cost per day, referring to the quay, would be £399 plus VAT of £79.80. Likewise with Market Street, that is assessed as having 21 bays. So I've asked the question, would the cost of £75 as an administration fee to include the 5 bays, with the additional 16 bays being charged at £12 per bay? And the net cost of that per day, this is only applicable on Saturdays because Market Street is free parking on Sundays. That would be £192 plus the VAT of £38.40. So I've asked for this clarification on the Sunday parking because this appears to have been overlooked. I've also asked with respect to the Christmas lights whether the projected cost of closing a proportion of the car park that is owned by DDC, will the policy of charging voluntary organisations for the loss of car parking revenue be implemented? Because that's not clear on it. An entirely separate issue I've addressed is the key green hire, because event organisers are paying £195 per day for the duration of the weekend. Duration of the weekend, sorry. But not all of that area is fit for hire. If you look in the dip between the Grass Street and the play area, that damage was caused back in 2015. It's still not been repaired, and I've asked for this to be repaired. Moving on to waterways. So on the 13th of February, I contacted, aware of the fact that we had met with Darren Solly and Emma Jane Allen back on the 29th of August last year, and when it was confirmed that the window of opportunity for actually doing any work was between mid-February and mid-April. So, more or less bang on the mid-February, I sent an email asking for an update. And I received an update within 24 hours, in fact, the same day. And then furthermore, going on from that, on the 25th of February, I had an email confirming that they are on site with the ecologists completing the vegetation clearance and the water bowl survey work. And this is in preparation for the licence to commence work week beginning 10th of March. I've now been on another update on the 10th of March, suggested that the contractor will be on site tomorrow, i.e. the 11th of March, finishing off the destructive search of any water bowl burrows within all proposed working areas. And they go on to inform me that this has required different licence from previously. This is providing the ecologist is satisfied, then the works to construct the new bridges can commence swiftly after, which has a 4-week contact period. All being well, works will be completed before mid-April. Next is the planning appeal 22 for planning application, 22/01341. The site address is the land next to 95 St George's Road, Sandwich. So I called this application into the DDC Planning Committee during the spring of last year, and which was subsequently refused planning permission. The applicant appealed against the decision during the summer of 2024, and I'm pleased to report that the planning inspector has upheld the decision. This decision was announced in January, made by the DDC Planning Committee. I'm now asking whether the planning breaches will be addressed by the restoration of the biodiversity that existed at the site prior to the developer undertaking preemptive clearance. Should I not get a particularly favourable response, I will use this in conjunction with the land grab up to 95, between St Bart's Road and Smockmill Lane that I spoke of earlier, to ask the planning committee what they're doing, because if they're not enforcing planning laws, what is their purpose? And I alluded to this at the Heritage and Townscape meeting that I had last week. I attended a meeting on the community caretaker scheme on the 3rd of March, and I'm awaiting further updates, so I hope before the next council meeting we'll have an update on that. And lastly, I attended the member briefing for the development of Archers Low, SAP 22, on Tuesday 18th of March. Disappointed to be advised that solar panelling will not be included, but that heat pumps will be. Anyway, the timeline is the public consultation begins today for a period of 2 weeks. The planning application will be submitted in April. They target the planning application to be considered at DDC Planning Committee in July. Projected building works to start in Q1 of 2026 and dwelling completion during Q4 of 2026. There's no questions.
So I've got a couple of questions, Councillor Morehouse. So firstly, going back to the parking issue that you've raised directly with the District Council in terms of events, are you joining the meeting on Wednesday, the meeting with DDC regards parking?
I'm unable to, unfortunately. I have another engagement on Wednesday.
Yeah. So I suppose the question is, are you expecting another sort of replay of the issues, or would you prefer those that are on that call to leave it in your hands if you're pursuing it?
This has been forced by the Overviewing Scrutiny Committee to go back to Cabinet. Cabinet will meet next Monday to make a decision, and this is we hope to force them into a decision on a U-turn on this decision. I don't believe that will be discussed on the 26th. I'll be very surprised if it is, if it's going to Cabinet on Monday the 31st.
Okay, so it's just with the parking strategy meeting we've got this Wednesday, it's how deep we go into that issue. The second thing, you mentioned Archers Low, and you mentioned the consultation starts today.
Yes.
Is that right? I've not seen anything advertising that at all, right. Certainly on social media. Not that we should all be just looking at social media all the time. But I just wonder, it's quite an important issue, that development, in terms of people being allowed to comment on it. So we need to make sure we're advertising it at least, because I've certainly not seen anything elsewhere.
Archers Low have actually made contact,
Okay.
and we are hoping to arrange a meeting with members.
Yes, and that's fine. It's about the public being able to also contribute. Yeah. Okay.
So that will be on the Sandwich Town Council Facebook page.
It should be, yes.
And the website.
Yes. Thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Morehouse before we move on? No. Thank you very much. On to agenda item, I'd like to invite Councillor Chandler to come up if you'd like to stand in your usual place, if that's all right.
That's fine. Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Good evening, councillors. So I wanted to start by just updating councillors on the situation with regard to local government reorganisation. You will recall that I said a submission had to be into government by the 14th of March, which was duly submitted. The representation has gone in, which does not, this is the preliminary representation about the form that local government reorganisations should take in Kent from district councils and county council to unitary councils. So that letter has been submitted, but it doesn't give a definitive view about the number of unitary councils that is deemed appropriate, although it gives it indicates a bandwidth that has been suggested. What it does emphasise is the fact that the unitary councils that are formed should be financially sustainable, and there is a considerable amount of evidence to indicate the size of unitary councils that will be sustainable after the changes. The letter goes on to say that it would be difficult to support a proposal which creates councils that are in themselves unsustainable financially from the beginning. It also emphasises the point that the local government reorganisation should continue to be alongside devolution. So the concept of local government reorganisation in Kent without the advantages that devolution brings in terms of strategic powers would seem to be somewhat illogical, is the view. However, it also emphasises that there will be time before the next submission goes in November for public consultation, as well as consultation with the constituent councils, and that will also, through I assume, include consultation with town and parish councils. I just wanted to let council know that you may well have seen that the evidence that was given to the Government Transport Select Committee last week emphasised very clearly the disruption that's caused in Kent, all over Kent, but we know well in this area, by the amount of works that the utilities carry out on our roads and the disruption that causes to both residents and to local business, but also the lack of powers that a local authority has to manage that in any meaningful way, and the tactics that some utility companies are using in order to designate some works as emergency works. So there was a request for clarity to be applied to the definition of emergency works, which is probably not the one that Southern Water currently use, to be perfectly honest. We're basically saying that everybody needs to work on this if we're going to get to a sensible place where those utility works can be managed in a better way. So we will wait and see what heed the government actually pay to that representation. We weren't alone in that. There were other local authorities, two other local authorities, I think, who were saying pretty much the same thing in a slightly different way. I have had meetings with residents about the issue of subsidence on one side of the road in Harnett Street, which is undoubtedly caused by the fact that there is parking along one side of Harnett Street, and therefore the traffic is goes along the right-hand side of the street, with the consequence that the camber on the right-hand side appears to have subsided considerably or steepened considerably, with consequences in terms of flooding when it rains hard, etc. So I have picked that one up with highways, and I hope that there will be some. It's further exacerbated by the fact that because of that, the side of the road is deteriorating. So I have picked that one up and will hope for some faster response than the residents were initially offered. So we will see how that pans out, and I will report back. And then on Saturday, I was fortunate enough to visit with the MP and with the Chief Executive of Visit Kent, which is considerably funded by Kent County Council, a constituent, to visit Richborough Castle, which is obviously run by English Heritage, and then the Medieval Centre in Sandwich. With reference to the visit to Richborough Castle, it's worth reporting that they are pleased that their visitor numbers have increased fairly substantially since they made their improvements and reopened, and they are hoping that that will increase a little bit more. There was reference made to the recent, well, one not so recent, and then the more recent applications for solar parks, which will impinge considerably on the views from Richborough Castle. And the comment, I think, was that, and Councillor Black will be interested in this particularly, the comment was particularly that that could well scupper any chances of it becoming a more substantial site in the future. So I know that Councillor are aware of this, and I know that you've given your views, but in particular the second application, as you look through the eastern walls of Richborough Castle, should that go ahead, all you will see is solar panels. It was pointed out to us, so I'm passing that on just for information. At the Medieval Centre, it was very impressive. I know that I've been to several of their events, and they are always very impressive. We were allowed to go on the boat and see the progress that they're making on the boat, which is quite substantial, and that was particularly good to see. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Anderson?
Yes, thank you. I've got a question about a building that was Wayfarers, because it seems to be empty. There doesn't seem to be any sign of any activity at all. And I just wondered if you could find out.
Of course,
what's
I
happening.
was, as far as I knew, it was
I
still
don't know
being.
whether other councillors have observed the same, but
Okay, so
I agree.
I was unaware. I will, as far as I knew, it was still occupied by the charity who took it on. I will make some inquiries and find out what's happening.
yes. And I'd also like to make a comment about solar panels. In general, I'm in favour of solar panels.
Absolutely.
But as I understand it, there is a house which will be impacted by these solar panels. They will be 50 metres from their front door. And as I also understand it, that is against the general guidelines for fields of solar panels, that they should be within a minimum of 200 metres of people's residential dwellings. So that is a major factor, and should be taken into consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met the residents of that particular house. I know it well. We would probably, unless you actually knew it was there, you probably wouldn't have come across it, but and talked to them at length on Saturday, and they are in touch with a number of people, but I suggested a few more avenues that they could try. The MP has also taken up their case, so you're absolutely right, it is very close, and the applicants were apparently unaware of the existence of that particular house until they turned up at one of their. Seems somewhat remiss of the surveyors who did this, but anyway, that is the situation. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, I should perhaps just also clarify that yes, I'm all for encouraging solar panels, and Councillor Morehouse mentioned them as well. I would particularly encourage them on large scale buildings. And in the appropriate place, they're absolutely fine. We do have a very heavy incidence of solar panels. There are a number of applications in this particular area which are unfulfilled. In other words, permitted development which is unfulfilled. But we also, unfortunately, sit within an area which is in deficit. in terms of power capacity. Because historically the Richborough power station supplied a considerable amount of the power for this area. Once the Richborough power station stopped supplying, then this particular area became in deficit, as anyone or some people who have applied to have car chargers will have discovered, because they're being refused, to be perfectly honest. So, just for information.
Thank you. More questions?
Yeah, these utility companies, I mean, we're getting the pavements dug up everywhere. But I'm worried, do they get planning permission for all these cabinets? I mean, you've got by St Peter's Church, I think they're breeding up there. We started on one. I think there's about 5 up there now. There's a massive one round on St Bart's Road, and there's a wide verge there, but the size of it, and there's another smaller one, and also round, I think it's Brighton Sea. Are they on the pavements? Do they measure and make sure that the pavement width is wide enough? Because why don't they put them on the grass verge next to it? You know, is there any discussion where they actually site the cabinets?
So I think it depends. So in general terms, it depends on the permissions they require depend on the size, but it also depends on whether they're replacing an existing facility. But the honest answer is I don't know exactly what the planning requirements are, but I'll find out. Or I'm sure Councillor Morehouse can find out also.
Thank you. Councillor Pendleton.
Well, along the same lines really as Councillor Franklin, one of the main sources of discontent I find at the moment are these unannounced, very sudden road closures, diversion signs which go in all directions, and nobody knows which diversion is supposed to be the one that they're following. It really is chaotic. I understand that nationally over 25% of requests from utility companies are said to be emergencies, but there has to be some better control of that, some better vetting and some better planning on the part of the utility companies to ensure that residents are seriously inconvenienced. It's not only creating a waste of time, it's creating very often dangerous situations in relation to road safety.
I absolutely agree with you. And numerous representations to the cabinet member and numerous representations from KCC to government on this particular one have resulted in the representations we made to the select committee last week. So, you know, hopefully a combined effort on this can actually achieve some improvements.
Your last question, Councillor Morehouse.
Yes, roads, but this time not closures, surfaces. The road surfaces around Sandwich at the moment are an abomination. I think it's fair to say. The Deal Road, I can cite the Deal Road. It was closed for a day last week. There's no tangible sign of any improvement there whatsoever. The Ramsgate Road when I asked you a couple of years ago about the Ramsgate Road, you quite rightly told me about the resurfacing work that was planning between the toll bridge and the entrance to the industrial estate. It does beg a belief why they didn't go further up towards Mike's Wall, because that is now resembling a farm track, as is the stretch of road between St Bart's and the eastern side of St Bart's and the new street level crossing, which again is playing a game of dodge the pothole. As a car driver, it's annoying. We have to keep our cars in good condition and expected to go. There's no such requisite for roads. But what concerns me as well is cyclists, and there have been instances of cyclists being seriously injured because of potholes, and it doesn't appear to be any kind of will to make our roads what they should be, what we pay for them to be.
So you will have, I have spoken in the past about the amount of money it would take to actually put our roads in the state that they should be, and the huge gap between that and the amount of funding that actually KCC receives in order to keep our roads in good condition. Added to that, the settlements recently have been 1-year settlements, which do not allow for long-term planning. Now there is talk that will improve, and we will get the local government will get longer-term settlements, which would help. There is very limited funding in order to do the more long-term programmed maintenance that we that we used to be able to do. So, you know, we can only use the money that we are given by government in order to fund that. We don't have surplus within the council to read, although we do have a core budget, a core council budget, but we don't have surplus with other things that we have to fund in order to do that. In terms of potholes, that might be a danger to a cyclist, if they are reported as such, they will be inspected and will be repaired, because there is a strict criteria around the seriousness of potholes, and they will be done within that time frame if they pose a safety risk to both motorists and to cyclists. They need to be designated as such when they're reported. If they're reported to me, I will do so, but it's quicker to actually report them through the reporting tool on the KCC website.
Okay, one.
Yeah, it was reported on the 6 o'clock news this evening that there is now an extra pot of money to deal particularly with potholes.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, it will be competed for between local authorities. So
You're right.
KCC will need to get its act together very quickly.
KCC is absolutely going to compete for the amount of money. Unfortunately, sometimes such competing can be a little bit misleading. As was some of the funding before the budget, which was then designated in terms of other things than community characteristics rather than need in a particular place. So, but yeah, we will be.
I would have thought, given channel ports and so on, that we would have
The funding for roads is on a parity, whether you are up in Cumbria or whether you are down in Kent. The amount of money we're paid per mile of road is the same for us on the roads in Dover, for example, as they are on the minor roads in Cumbria or North Yorkshire, unfortunately.
Thank you very much. Feel free to stay if you want to. Thank you. Okay, if we move on to the next agenda item 9. I see that we don't have our local police officer here this evening. Have we had a report from them? Okay, if we could request one, that would be good. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, update from councillors. Are there any council acts? Start with Councillor Mallet and Councillor Black. Mallet, yeah.
If I can, there's two areas to cover. One is Councillor Morehouse has largely covered already the parking fees. Now I do appreciate that I'm coming at this with two hats on, or multiple hats, both councillor and dealing with events. But we essentially, it was two meetings I went to. The meeting, as Councillor Morehouse suggested, with Mills and various in the events team, parking team and other teams. I can echo Councillor Morehouse's comments. It was dispiriting when responses such as Sandwich Town Council will have to put its precept up in order to give the money to the festivals, to be able to give to Dover, to be able to pay for the parking, that we should equally go to the businesses, the shops, the pubs, and say, we're bringing more customers in, you need to pay us money, and if you don't, we will get competing stall holders who will provide the food and the drinks so that you won't get anything. Which was, coming from a council was, I think, unfortunate. On a brighter side, we have tested out part of the VE Day celebration events, which will be the Leave to Land, which will be going to the courtroom. The first one, there will be 10 of these, which will replicate what we had in January of last year. I've arranged a TENS licence, so we have a bar in the forecourt, and I've sort of shown, where was it, the badges. We'll be giving 240 to the junior school with the Sandwich VE Day logo on. I just spoke to a few of you with regard to whether it should be, this is a 0.83, this is a 1-inch badge, which you prefer. It's even. There will be I will flick a coin. All shops have had one of these, which just basically warns them to say, advises them to say what is coming. And you will also, I emailed a brochure, a draft of the brochure, it's welcoming comments. And please, any comments you have on it, any modifications, additions, please feel free to say. And I'll do a final draft which I'll circulate and say, this is it, it's going to go to the printers. Thank you very much.
Councillor Black.
Thank you. Following on the econs, actually at the tourism networking event, we did do quite a hard sell using the brochure, especially to tourist authorities and so on, pointing out the unique feature that we're going to have. So hopefully a lot of people will pick that up. I know that Compass also picked it up. I've got 3 items to talk about very quickly. Do you remember the level crossing fiasco we had a long time ago? Network Rail have now agreed to arrange for some of their managers to come and talk to us. The problem we've got is finding a date, because we feel that if we have a special meeting one evening, attendance of these has been rather low. So I spoke to Mayor and to Councillor Wiles. We think we'll either attach it onto an STC meeting or an F&GP meeting. The problem is in April the STC meeting already has a pre-meeting, so that's going to be too long, and this may or may not be of relevance. I'm going to be away for the F&GP meeting, so you won't have anyone able to ask a few more pointed questions, should we say, should they be needed. So I'm going to see if we can get something in May for them to come and attend. It is addressing the town council. It was suggested we do it at the annual town meeting, not appropriate, and we'll run out of time anyway. Other 2 things I've got are Tourism Forum. I raised the matters that have been raised by the Sandwich Town Council about tourism committee and so on. They were quite adamant they do not want a tourism committee in its old form at all. They felt that this would be too bureaucratic and would create problems. They want a much looser relationship. They would like to continue using the Guildhall as a venue. Prepared to give members of the Heritage and Townscape the notes of the forum meetings, but they're not doing a special report. They are very concerned about the low level of activity that Sandwich Town Council is engaged in about tourism. In particular, they really keep on saying, sort out what you're doing with the Visitor Information Centre. I've got no comments to where it should go, but the forum really feels this needs to be sorted out. And then secondly, what it actually does, because I think that is part of the problem. And secondly, could we please sort out the website? So I've got a meeting with the town clerk when she comes back to start talking about her vision for the website, and let's hope we can get some things there to be much more of a sales tool and a signpost to other websites. So that's the forum. The networking, there were about 70 plus attendees. This was organised by Dover District Council. They organise one a year. The last one was in, at the Asst Theatre this year it's here. I think it's going to be in Dover next year. I spoke to quite a few people there. Interestingly, the most important thing I've got is I'm going to speak to a couple of blue badge holders who either live in Sandwich or close to Sandwich to get their views about the practicalities and the reality and an unjaundiced view as to what's good about Sandwich and what is lacking in Sandwich, and we need to consider both. Also spoke to the Compass group to talk about problems with communications, that people not picking up from the Compass group what is happening, and this to a certain extent feeds into suggestion elsewhere that need a Chamber of Commerce. I'm not getting into that debate at all, but I will be meeting the Compass group to see what can we do better about communications of events, because we cannot have stallholders saying or shop holders saying, I knew nothing about it. That isn't acceptable. They need to be ready for it. Spoke to a lot of people from places like Deal and Dover, so it's looking at what they do, what we do, There may be a couple of good contacts coming from that. The only unfortunate thing was that we had arranged to take people to the medieval centre, and a very, very, very small number decided to go. And in fact, when I got them there, they said, "Oh no, we've run out of time." So it was most unfortunate. The medieval centre put on some volunteers, and their outcome was excellent, as you've alluded to. And unfortunately, very, very poor attendance. But you know, we can't do anything about that. But overall, I think it was a success. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black. Anybody else? Councillor Wiles?
I'll just report back on the Friends of the Empire Cinema. There's a couple of new committee members have been recruited, one of whom was previously the manager of the Bevismark Synagogue in London and managed to achieve about £6 million of grant funding for that building, and is also involved with the art project in Cliftonville, where he's managed to secure lots of grant funding. So we're hoping that his expertise will be able to assist the Tollbridge Fund in perhaps identifying sources of funding for the future refurbishment of the cinema. There is a meeting of the committee on Thursday. I regret to say that the relationship with the lessee of the cinema has not flourished between the lessee and the Friends, and it might be the case that the Friends ceases to exist, but I won't go into the details of that at this stage. But there is also some talk within that committee about setting up open air screenings on the Forecourt. So there might be some proposals coming forward at some point from individuals or organisations.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wiles. Okay, we move on to the next agenda item, which is agenda item 11. And this is financial information, budget comparison, financial statement, cash book, bank reconciliations and forecast 2024-25 reports. We've got three attachments here, 6A, 6B and 6C. All three of these have been reviewed at Finance and General Purposes Committee. So if I could go through them in the order as included in the agenda. So the first is to receive and note the Sandwich Town Council bank reconciliation as of the 28th of February 2025. If there are no comments, could somebody propose receive and note these?
Note.
Councillor Moorhouse and Councillor Wiles. Would you agree with vote on this? That's unanimous, thank you. The second one is to receive and note the Sandwich Town Council financial budget comparison report as of the 28th of February 2025.
Note.
Seconder. Councillor Pennington. And the votes. That's unanimous. The final one is to receive and note the financial statement cash book as of the 28th of February 2025.
Going for the hat trick, note.
And seconder, Councillor Pennington as well. And the votes. And that's unanimous as well. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 12, seating arrangements in the council chamber. We don't have a report to support this. What I'd like to propose, because actually this is, you know, we've experienced both configurations. I'd like to allow Councillor Franklin, who's brought this request, to put forward his reasons for wanting us to revert to the previous configuration. Then I'd like to invite Councillor Wiles, who will have the alternative view on that. And then if there are any extra bits that people feel have really been missed, we'll do that. If not, if we could go to a vote after that. Okay, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr.
Franklin.
Well, it's 3 years since we come back to the council chamber after having our meetings in the main hall because of COVID and you'll see the iPads. So therefore I was amazed when I attended the January meeting of the town council to see that tables and chairs for the councils have been rearranged by the town clerk. I asked why and was informed that the council had requested this due to a resolution passed over 3 years ago when the town council meetings were held in the main hall of the Guildhall due to the COVID restrictions. Before the town council returned back to the council chamber and a traditional seating arrangement, the minutes are vague from this time due to clerical issues. The Guildhall was built in the 16th century, comprising a large ground floor room for meetings of the town guilds, elections of mayor's deputies, court proceedings and used for voting in borough council, town, DDC, KCC, general elections and public meetings over the years. The council chamber was designed to allow a rectangular arrangement of tables and chairs, with the mayor and town clerk sitting at one end and the other 15 councillors seated on the other three sides, with room for over 20 residents to attend a meeting seated behind councillors opposite the mayor. This arrangement has been used by the town council for over 400 years. Dover District Council used this seating arrangement for councillors and officers when the new council was built. Officers was built at Whitfield in 1974. This is a traditional layout. The mayor's parlour was used for committee meetings of the town council every month after the monthly meetings of the town council and Tollbridge Fund. This stopped during COVID about 6 years ago and has not resumed. I did not ask for the committee meetings to be included in this agenda. I didn't want them to go back into the mayor's parlour. I was asked to chair the town council meetings in early 2020 after the mayor declined to attend any further meetings of the town council and the deputy mayor had previously resigned at that time. COVID restrictions were completely lifted and the town council resumed the historical seat in this council chamber in May, and I was elected mayor at that time for the third time. I asked the town clerk for a meeting to discuss the changed seating arrangements for the town council. The clerk replied that the mayor would also like to attend the meeting, to which I agreed. The meeting took place in the mayor's parlour February the 19th. I asked the town clerk why after 3 years the seating was altered. The mayor replied that Councillor Gray had asked for the seating to be rearranged or he would resign from the town council. The mayor stated he asked the town clerk to change the seating arrangement because he did not want Councillor Gray to resign, because he did not want to by-election because of the cost involved. I said this was appeasement and the debate should take place at the full town council. So therefore I asked for an agenda item to be placed on the February town council meeting. The town clerk replied this was too late as she had already completed the agenda for the February meeting, so here we are in March. So therefore I propose that Sandwich Town Council are seated in the traditional and correct manner at town council meeting. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Frederick. Are you happy for those notes you've got there to be attached
No,
to the minutes?
You can have this.
Thank you very much. Could I invite Councillor Lawrence?
Yes, going back to February 2022, four new councillors were elected, and one of the key issues for us was having a new seating arrangement whereby we face the public rather than sitting with our backs to the public. That was what was happening at the time of lockdown in the main hall. When we came back in here, it's not something that we pursued, unfortunately, but when this new arrangement was set up, I was surprised, I have to say, because I'd not been consulted about that, but I'm happy that it has been done in this way because, as I say, one of our key concerns was to not face sit with our backs to the public. I think that's disrespectful to the public. I think we should be more open in the way we conduct our meetings. I don't particularly like having people sitting looking at the back of my head, and I think this arrangement is more satisfactory. Actually, I would prefer the arrangement to be a U-shape, whereby we have councillors there, and there, and the public sitting here. And I think how we have it now is fine, perhaps in that configuration, but whatever happens, I don't think we should sit with our backs to the public. I think it's rude and it's disrespectful, and I think it's tradition, but it's a tradition that we should shift to one side.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Are there any significant points that have been missed, Councillor Emerson?
No points that have been missed, but I really can't see the problem about us looking at the public and the public looking at us without our backs to them. And I'm not sure what the evidence is that the councillors always sat with their backs to the public.
Yes, the mayor sits there, there's 16 town councillors, the mayor sits there, the town clerk bench is there. How are we going to sit 15 councillors around here? They won't. Before there was 2 people sharing a corner, then 2 people sharing a corner. I do like this idea, but it does. If you're going to do it, it does need spacing out. Just we can get 15 councillors around this table, but I still prefer the traditional method. I think it's just too squashed.
Councillor Black.
I mean, read it, we're a bit squashed, but there's actually more space at the top. There's 3 people sitting there, you could easily have 5 or 6. And that would address some of the issues that you've got. I know, yeah, there is more space there. It's just been tradition, obviously, that the mayor would sit there with beneath the coat of arms and have space for the mace appropriately. But I do think we could positively about how we use a bit more space at that end. But I do agree, it is a constrained room. It's very difficult to get everybody in.
Just finally, councillor.
I think, I agree with that. I think there's easily space for 6 people at the top
Yep.
table. Perhaps the committee chairs could sit with the mayor and the deputy mayor and the town clerk, and then you could have a U shape here with the public sitting behind. I think that would work perfectly well, but I don't think we should sit with our backs to the public.
So there's possibly an action here, but first of all, we have got a proposal from Councillor Franklin, so we should vote on that if you can get somebody to say.
I'm glad we haven't been debate, Mr Deputy Mayor, that's the main thing. I'm glad we haven't been debate, that's the most important.
Do you not want to go to the vote today and take away the action?
Well, I haven't got a second,
Mr.
Mr.
So what I would like us to take it away and look at what's been suggested in terms of trying to address both how you've raised it, but also making it work in terms of facing the public.
I make sure the council have plenty of space, not squash.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Franklin. We can move on to the next 3 items actually. The next 3 items, 13, 14 and 15, all relate to the Georgina Maddox charity. Agenda item 13 is the Maddox Trust Portfolio Position Review, and that's attachment 7 in the pack. This requires a decision on whether to adopt the proposed schedule of investment for the Georgina Maddox investment portfolio. Just a couple of points I wanted to mention before we open up for comments. We were asked at the last STC meeting to consider adopting the proposed schedule of investments, and it was resolved that the item be deferred for councillors to reflect on the proposal itself. Key concerns raised were that the dividend yield was not acceptable, and for some members there was an unhappiness with the proposal itself. The second point I was going to make was that EFG Harris have advised that the current position of the portfolio does not align with our selected investment strategy and risk profile. They have permitted a temporary waiver for this, but they're now seeking a decision, as they were last month, from the Town Council on this matter. So I hope people have taken time to reflect on this and that we can come to a conclusion in this meeting. It would be unhelpful, I think, to defer it again, as we've had 2 engagements with the SG Harris around this. We also brought it to the Town Council meeting last time. So I'll open up for any comments. Councillor Wiles, I think, has already indicated.
I mean, I'm happy with this portfolio that's being proposed. My only comment, I suppose, going forward is to wonder, not being too political, but in view of the appalling way that the US administration is behaving, whether we should withdraw from any US investments.
It might be diving.
Thank you for that comment. Councillor Breen.
Thank you. I kind of noted in the report that the council wished not to invest in oil and other energies and so forth. But when I look at the fact sheets, I can see the names Philip Morris, Petrobras, Total Energy, Shell, Unilever, which is one of the companies that Georgina has, BP, BAT, Energy, but not specified companies, Shell, BP, Rio Tinto, Philip Morris, BAT, Shell. These are all some of the major holdings that these equity funds are citing. So I don't really feel that they're achieving and delivering on our request not to invest in things like tobacco and oil. Sorry?
Yeah, it's in the funds.
If you look into the detail of the funds, and I can tell, you know, I can name the funds. You know, Alliance Whitlam, they're in Philip Morris and Petrobras. Low Debenture are in Shell, BP and Rio Tinto. James Henderson, Philip Morris, Schroders I've got major customers, or the major investments are in BAT and Shell. You know, and I've just trawled through about a dozen of them, so I'd invite other councillors to do the same. But you know, it just seems to me, the wording of the thing, it says we do not directly invest in these companies, but indirectly.
Councillor Anderson?
Yes, I have noticed the same aspects as Councillor Green. In general, I approve of investment in funds because it does spread the total portfolio. But as I think I've mentioned before, I have a portfolio myself, which I have made certain over the years is only ethically invested, and I am invested in funds which do not invest in oil, fossil fuels of any kind, no mining, no drink, no armaments, and actually it does rather well. So, you know, it is possible to invest in funds which are specifically arranged for people like myself or institutions like this one, if that is how we are minded to proceed, which is personally what I would like.
Yeah, personally, I don't believe in this zero thing. I think we still need backup systems. I still think we need oil, we need diesel for our tractors. A lot of these companies now are doing a lot of green initiatives, aren't they, with solar farms and different things. So I think we should still carry on investing in them as long as they're, you know, as long as they're achieving a good result, because we're still going to want fuel. I mean, we cut back on coal now, haven't we? I mean, look at what happened at Heathrow. We needed diesel generators there, didn't they? But apparently said they didn't have them. I think in all the hospitals, they really need diesel generators, just in case it goes down. So I think we still need diesel companies. We can't just say, oh, get rid of all the oil companies. No, we do need them, and I think we should keep shares in them.
I'm going to be a bit controversial here for a change. Isn't our first objective to maximise the return? And that's why I have been a pension trustee and taught very early in the training that the main objective of a trustee is to maximise the return, or it's one of the main objectives. And if we start having, and I use them inverted commas, ethical investments, there is a danger we may not. And the world has changed since January. Europe is going to have to think completely differently about the way it does things. So why aren't you looking at Kinetic? Why aren't you looking at BAE, BAE systems, and so on?
Yeah.
You really have to start looking at people like that. Yeah. We can have all the wonderful things in the world, but if we ain't got a defence industry, we are in deep trouble. And the world has changed completely. We can no longer rely upon certain allies. They won't be there.
So, in terms of this paper, the report that's come here is to ask us whether to decide to adopt the proposed schedule of investment for the investment portfolio. We've got some specific comments regarding direct investments that don't comply with our strategy. We've also got a suggestion in terms of where we might want the investments possibly to be targeted as well. So in terms of voting on this, we can vote in principle to adopt the investment portfolio as described from EFG Harris, but take forward the actions, or alternatively, we can turn down that, but we're going to be in a very difficult position if we turn it down again, because the pressure from EFG Harris is that they've got to the point now where they are not running our investment portfolio in line with our strategy or our risk profile, and that's where we need to get to.
I would like to make a suggestion that we accept this advice, and we see how we go. I mean, you know, we'll see how it moves in relation to all the other movements, comparator indices and so on. And that we review it in a year's time, and during that year we can have a discussion related to the climate emergency objective, which is also probably going to be part of the business plan. we can have a discussion about where we should be investing.
I'd like to go back to Councillor Green in case there's any reaction in terms of your list of indirect investments, how we can accommodate that within adopting the strategy as it is.
Well, I think what I was really just trying to point out is that this company haven't obeyed our direction in selecting these funds. But that's really the point I was going to make. I think Councillor Underson's proposal is sensible. We do need to move on, and later on we're going to be discussing extra funds that we want to send to this company. And I do feel that we are not really best qualified to be able to handle these matters, and I think kind of going forward that the council should seriously consider employing an independent financial advisor to guide us through some of these.
Thank you. So, Councillor Anderson, are you happy to propose that we do accept it, and Councillor Green
But
happy
that
to
it's
second?
reviewed in a year's
In a
time,
year's time.
and we take account of some of the comments that you
Yep,
made.
are you happy to second that, Councillor Green?
And that we employ an independent financial
Yeah.
advisor.
I think so. We've got a similar issue with the Tollbridge Fund investments. So I think we need to take that to the finance committees. I know that Councillor Wiles is already aware of this, and we need to explore how we do this. So it's already been raised within finance and general purposes. It's not going to be lost, Councillor Black. It certainly isn't. It can be noted.
I'm not confident
Yeah,
that that is the case.
It can be noted. It's going to be at finance committee level initially to develop proposals around this. We have to do it for both, I think. Okay. Happy to have it as an adjunct to the proposal if you would want to.
If it is an adjunct, then,
Yeah.
then fine.
Yeah.
But the details, of course, I accept as a different committee.
Yeah.
But only if it's a specific adjunct.
Yeah. Okay. So the vote is to just go back to the actual thing. So it's to adopt the new suggested position in the portfolio as provided by EFG Harris all day, with a caveat that it's reviewed within at the end of the 12-month period, but also with the adjunct that we will be exploring the value and the future benefits of both this fund, but also we will be looking at the Tollbridge Fund as well. Thank you.
I'll second.
Sorry, does the
Which will be
council
through
need,
STDF.
does the council need to consider its strategy
Yes.
in terms of the types of things that it's investing in? Because
So there's another action, and
That's
until that
another
down
action,
to
yeah.
the finance and general purposes.
I would second that proposal that you've just come out with.
Thank you very much. Would you like to vote on that?
Yeah.
That's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item 14. This is the Maddox CIO Registration update. So, this requires a decision from members on whether to instruct Levix to undertake a new application with an agreed amended draft CIO document at a reduced cost of £350. So this is following the submission to the Charity Commission and its rejection, with all the detail that's provided in the report as to why. What Levix have given us an assurance that they can make the necessary changes that should make it a successful application, and they're suggesting that they can do this, and that they can do this at a reduced rate of £350. Councillor Anderson.
I have to say I found the letter from the Charities Commission really obscure. I couldn't understand really what the objections are, but if Levix think they understand better, that's fine. But what I would like is, what are the implications if we just run the Maddox Fund? Does it actually have to be a charity? Are there tax implications? What are the implications if it's not a charity? And nobody has ever raised this, or well, I'm raising it now, and I would like an answer. What does it matter? Why does it And are there financial implications if we're not a charity? Well, are there tax implications? I don't know.
It's not an answer that I could give you an answer to today. It is something I would need to go back and ask and research.
Yeah, I think we need some time.
The issue will be that if we defer this again, then this won't come back for another month, and it'll be a further month's delay to progressing the request to set up a charity. If people recognise that, Councillor Pennington.
Yes, thank you. I think it probably does have major implications whether it's a charity or not. I think we might, if we go ahead with what's proposed, which I would support, we might ask for clarification on this point.
Councillor next.
Couple of things. I think in terms of does it need to be a charity, I think there is a need to separate this money from the town council so that it doesn't get lost in the town council. And I would say we've kind of seen over the last few months how the town council is struggling with being able to cope with Maddox. You know, it was October that the Maddox Management Committee was established, and we've not been able to meet yet. You know, and that is really because of capacity issues within the town council itself. In respect of the approval of this extra £350, I have to say that I've lost faith in Levics. I think they've delivered a poor service. We paid them several thousand, or a couple of £1,000 to help with the charity incorporation document, and now they want us to pay for them. You know, they didn't give us the right advice when they had the opportunity. They prolonged the service. They didn't do anything for us in January because they had other commitments. And I've previously suggested to the town clerk that we should go out to a couple of other consultants. I don't think we should be paying Levics extra money, and indeed I don't know whether we've paid them the original fee.
Councillor
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Green. I mean, they should have advised us before we put the application into the Charity Commission, so now they're trying to get an extra bit of money out of it. I think the thing about having it as a charity, if you've got investments you're earning, it's most probably the investments would be taxable income. Whereas if it's a charity, that's just my, that's my thoughts on that. That's why it's a charity. And I didn't realise we were setting up as a CIO. Kind of interested. I didn't think we were doing. I thought we were just setting up as a charity and people apply for grants or something.
It has to be one of the models, and CIO is a model. I think that we.
Well, I do blame Levies. I think we should ask for something else to have a look.
Councillor Anderson.
Oh yes, thank you. Yes, I mean I would like that clarification, clear and simple, that if we're not a charity, then no tax implications, and they would be considerable given the income that's being proposed. But secondly, being a charity isn't a defence against the town council, as we know from the experience of the Tollbridge Fund, because the Tollbridge Fund, as we know, is being used to prop up the town council and reduce the precept and so on, and has been historically. So there probably is some other way, not being a lawyer, I have no idea, but if it was set up as a trust, there was a Maddox trust, not a charitable trust, but a trust, then maybe it would be defended from the town council's predations. But as we know from the Tollbridge Fund, it's not a good defence.
And finally, Councillor Lounge.
Thank you. I think to answer the point that the Tollbridge Fund is mired in many decades of very close link, and I think this could be a very, very different situation. And certainly my impression is this one's to be completely different. I am also concerned that why are we paying this bunch of lawyers yet more money? They should sort it out. They, by the sound of it, were the ones who made the mistake. I suspect they've given possibly to a junior, who knows. They should fix it at their own cost. If they can't do that, well, okay, we'll have to pay them out, we can question that. My suggestion is get it fixed, get the registration in as a charity, I can't see any other realistic way, but then say, thank you very much, we'll find someone else. Finish, and get them to finish the job, and then repart.
Okay, I'll take just one more from Councillor Maddox.
It's more a case of, I don't really mind whether it's trust or charity or whatever, it's what we have that we can present to the public to say, we've reached a point where it is a safe and secure, looked after, honest, decent thing. Because I'm picking up a lot of people, and I don't know that many, but a lot of people that I do know are saying, what's happening to the Maddox Trust?
Yeah.
You've had it for, the perception is years, and I'm having to explain to people quite what's going on, and if we get it wrong, I mean, my thoughts are, the next Georgina Maddox that comes along that thinks, shall I give it to, no I won't. I want them to say, yes we will.
Thank you. And on that point, I think what I will do, I'll propose that we do instruct Levics to undertake a new application with an agreed amended draft CIO document at a cost of £350 plus that. If anybody's likely happy to second that, we can go. Councillor Morehouse has seconded it, we can go to a vote. We've got one abstention and one against. Councillor Green, Councillor. Thank you very much. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 15. That's an update on the Georgina Maddox cash and investments, and that's attachment 9. The members are asked to approve the moving of £240,000 from the STC general account into the Georgina Maddox investment account. I think that might have been originally suggested by Councillor Green. I'm happy to propose that if people are happy to. Somebody second this, Councillor Franklin.
I think if we're moving this money, we need to be clear as to where we're asking them to invest it, don't we?
Okay.
So we need to give some guidance
And
on whether they just spread it across all of the other investments that they're proposing, or
do you have a view that you'd like to share?
I think we should ask them. Well, if they're making the recommendation, they should give them free rein to do whatever they think
Is sensible. Okay. If we're happy to do that on that basis as well, we can add that into the proposal. So
Sorry, could you repeat it? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, that they can invest it at their discretion in line with our instructions.
thank you. I'd like to go to a vote on that. That's unanimous as well.
Sorry, who was your second?
I think it's seconded by Council. Thank you. Agenda item 16, which is Monks Wall Nature Reserve Management Plan Review. So we have a management plan update for the Monks Wall Nature Reserve, and that's attachment 10. Members are asked to agree to the Warden's proposal to update the reserve management plan and for expenditure to be approved at £450 for the work to be undertaken. Councillor Franklin's proposing it, Councillor Morehouse is seconding it. And that's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we move on to agenda item 17, V-Day event expenditure. Councillor Meadow, would you like to talk to this?
Yes, but that's very briefly. I mean, I can't really add much more than we've got here. I'm looking for £3,000, which covers, for example, printing of the Leas Meadow exhibition, creation of 400 badges, of which 240 will go to the junior school, being those children that will most likely recognise what it is, and predominantly from Sandwich, to go part share on the brochure which I've circulated, to cover the searchlight at £600, and to cover the Anderson shelter display at a further £600, basically so that on the VE Day celebration evening we have things that people can see, when they look up. So we have, it will certainly put Sandwich on the map. Things to remember, communication. So it basically covers the whole gamut of the various things going on. I think Sandwich will have possibly nationally one of the best VE Day celebrations outside a major city. Thank you.
Thank you. So we agreed to an approved budget of 3,000, and the request is to approve expenditure in the region of 2,600. Is somebody happy to propose that? Councillor Green, Councillor Anderson secondly, and you can take that to vote. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, the next agenda item is agenda item 18. That's a proposal for fees for events on Leas Meadow, and the report is included as attachment 12. So I just want to say I've read through this report. I'd like to propose we defer this item to allow more work to be done on the proposal. It would be helpful to have information on the number and types of requests received to use in Meadow in the past, justification for choosing a flat fee of £40, whether we need to consider a fee structure for using the Meadow itself for events, and what the money raised might be used for. For example, should it just simply go into the general accounts, or should it be refunded, for example, for environmental purposes? So what I'm trying to say is this report is very scant on detail. Back to Councillor Pennington's point about at the start in terms of having fully fleshed out reports. That would be my proposal. I'll take Councillor Black's comment first.
Thank you. Yeah, very similar, because 3 mows, £770. We're going to need to have 20 uses just to break even. I'm not suggesting we should run this necessarily for a significant profit, but the absence of data here is pretty poor. Yeah. I'll be polite.
So you have to second my proposal?
I would second
defer
it.
Okay, can we take a vote?
Oh.
Or deferring it, if that's okay, unless you've got something material.
Well, I was just going to say, it's one of the main problems with it. It's very soft, and I think if you're going to have a consultant, I think you're going to need to put land drains in there.
Yeah.
Because we have had gem carners in the past, in August when it's dry, and we've had medieval fairs. But it does need a lot of investment on drainage.
Yeah.
No, so it's just a comment.
Okay.
If we're going to go ahead with improving and making Cowleys more visible, I believe that the gate should be improved, because all we need is somebody breaking in and possibly living there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it would cost a hell of a lot more to deal with that than a decent gate, because that gate is not worth it. It's falling apart.
So you could feed that through as well in terms of. So I'd like another proposal to come back, hopefully to the next meeting with a bit more detail. Is it is it also including events on Leas Meadow? Is it about parking for events or else? So there's a whole host of missing sets of information on this. So it's been seconded by Councillor Black and proposed to defer it. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Agenda item 19, the draft business plan, and that's attachment 13. The business plan has already been shared with members to review and comment. It is presented to this meeting for consideration of adopting. I'd like to ask Councillor Wiles to introduce this item and cover some of these key points within the report itself.
Thank you. Yes, this has been developed by myself, Councillor Cllr, and the Town Clerk over the last couple of months or so. It's really just setting out artists for the next 2 years up until May 2027, the last 2 years of this council. It has been circulated to councillors previously. I did receive some comments back, which I've tried to incorporate into the report. So hopefully if you're upset about something that's not been included, you can raise it now. But it's hopefully a fairly understandable document which sets out the background to the council, what we're trying to do, and also in Appendix 4 some more detailed actions for both next year and the year after, up until May 27th. So I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
First, and then Councillor Anderson.
Well, on page 2, the second paragraph, I think it should be Sandwich is a wonderful place in which to live and work with a strong community spirit. And the following sentence doesn't make sense to me at all. Society is always changing, but we have to seek to manage it to turn to our advantage. So my suggestion is we delete that sentence and instead have a much more upbeat statement. An awful lot is going on in this town. And I think we could mention some of the societies, like the Sandwich Arts Society, the History Society. We could mention the clubs, the boxing club, the cricket club, tennis club, football club. I think we could mention that we have a whole series of places where interesting, exciting, popular community events take place, such as the Guildhall, dancing this evening, such as St Mary's Arts Centre, concerts, art exhibitions, such as the Jubilee Centre, various new activities are planned for that, Sandwich Pantry. And on the question of volunteering, there is a problem about getting people to volunteer. On the other hand, we have successes. And I think we could stress Sandwich in Bloom, for instance, which is, I think, an amazing success with volunteers really helping to make the town a more attractive place in which to live and visit. So altogether, I think a slightly more detailed and certainly much more upbeat statement about Sandwich.
Councillor Wild.
So on the first page, those things are all mentioned: tennis courts, meeting rooms, St Mary's, fitness and health facilities, nature reserves. And we try to encompass everything that's going on in the town. We do mention volunteers. Some of this was cut and paste, so I think the bits you referred to, I don't think I wrote that bit. Yeah, I take the point that it's perhaps not as upbeat as it could be, but one of the things we've tried to say in here is that this council does face some challenges, in the global macroeconomic sense, but also in terms of its own administration. I do hope this council is prepared to accept some of those challenges over the next few years and the key big decisions that have to be taken.
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to echo some of the things that Councillor Fortescue said. You'd be surprised to hear. Okay, so we don't have an orchestra. We're a very small town. Canterbury doesn't have an orchestra. But what we do have, and the clue is in the name, we have the Manwood Singers, we have the Sandwich Music Group, the Sandwich Training Band, the Sandwich Concert Band, the Choir of St Clement's Church, which is sung in Westminster Abbey and Rochester Cathedral, the Becker Ensemble, and the Railway Swing Band, all of which regularly perform in public to a fee-paying public. And it's just staggering to me. We have a really rich musical heritage and activity in this town. And to say we don't have an orchestra, well, who cares? It would be very surprising if a town of 6,000 could produce an orchestra, but we produce all these other musical activities.
Could I just say that
Sorry,
this...
Councillor Wild, if I can just...
No, I just respond to that because I did circulate this report to all
Yes, I know
councillors.
you did.
None of
Sorry,
these
I
points have
didn't
been raised
No, I
before
know.
tonight, so it
I know.
is rather frustrating
Well,
when people
Prosper.
stand up and make these comments when they've had an opportunity to respond previously.
Fair comment. Councillor Benson.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I did comment very soon after I received this. In principle, I think the business plan is very, very welcome, and I think we needed it, and I think we should use it as a tool for all our discussions. So, in principle, I'm in favour, but on my first impression was that it was what I would call, it's a Guildhall bubble document. It talks a lot about internal issues, but it doesn't go out to the town and talk about a lot of the issues maybe that people in the town are more concerned about. And I did raise one particular issue, which is I think that we should do much more in terms of helping support our schools and our young people through our activities. I think this should be one of the key priorities. Sorting out how the Tollbridge Fund, the Maddox Foundation and STC finances, frankly that's internal business. Okay, we need to work on it, but if we are using a document, or preparing a document where we go out and say to the town, this is what we think the priorities are, I think they would look at you with glazed eyes if you talk about some of the more internal financial management. I do think, you know, we need to foster Sandwich as a home for young families, and I think the best vehicle for doing this is to support our schools and our young people and provide them with facilities that will help them. So that's my main comment. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Thank you. I've got about 7 or 8 items, so I'll rattle through them as quickly as possible. Can I just say, I'll take it on the pages that they're here, 141. Just a minor correction. It's said under section 3 that we're not going to be a part of local government restructuring unitary authorities, and we've heard, of course, from Councillor Chandler, we will. Please, let's get this right. That needs to be corrected. I then go on to page 144, sorry, I've got to try and keep it short as possible. It says improve, on the 9 key points, point 2, improve internal efficiency. This has to be, include the delivery of efficient statutory processes, and I'm assuming, Councillor Wilson, that's what you're thinking of. And if that's the case, then I'm content with that. The only other point I would make is in item 7, on that page, we have got highway improvement plan funds of £11,000. That will pay for something like 3 TROs. Yeah. Come on, folks. I think we're being, you know, people will read this and take us on trust, which is right. But we're not going to be able to do much with a highway improvement plan. And I think we're in danger of gilding the lily, and I don't think that would help us. I do appreciate, by the way, all of the work that's gone in, and I did write to the group that work on this, and they have adopted some of the things, so I'm not going to mention those. However, I unfortunately do have a few more to rattle through some of the points of actually, just a minute, bear with me for a moment, please. Dodging about on this is not the easiest. Yeah. Page 1, no, not page 150, sorry. Page 151, I've got severe doubts that under priority and additional funding the museum and so on, I don't believe you can sort the museum in 1 year and stop doing it in 26, 27. I think there's much longer structural problems with this museum that we've got. It's great, but there's some structural problems here. And I would like to see some benchmarking about the cost of the museum. I've talked about the highway improvement plans, there's no point going over that again. On page 152, I've got release of the, retreat, renegotiate the Guildhall lease with the DDC, or give it back to them. We have got an extremely expensive thing, we're leasing it, we're losing money on it. We really have to think more constructively, and maybe one of the options is, here you are, have it back, please. That would be controversial, and it won't be very popular, but so I think. And I've also got in item, sorry, bear with me. We really have to look at item 7, respond robustly to climate change. We have a huge problem, as has been raised at other meetings, about DDC's rejection of any significant energy improvements in the conservation area and with listed buildings. That is a huge problem, which, for us to claim we're going to do this, when we've got this major problem, we need to work with DDC or whoever succeeds, and we are constrained by the legislation. But I think this again is leading people to think we can do things that we're not able to do. Very brief on my other ones. Sorry about this. Yeah, promoting sandwiches as a I've mentioned the thing, we need to sort out the website, we need to sort out the visitor information centre. However we do it, So again, we're kidding ourselves if we think this is going to be easy. It's not going to be very easy at all. And you'll be glad to know I'll be sitting down at the moment. Sorry about this, folks. Yes, this then is an issue for me, having been on the Standing Orders Working Group. I do not believe it's the role of the officers to write terms of reference. That is our job as councillors. They can advise us on legality, that's fine, but terms of reference are our job. And that's a very, very key thing. It should not be officers, because they naturally have a way of looking at things, which is perfectly correct. We have a different way, and we're the elected representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Morehouse.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I make a proposal that instead of airing the corrections and semantics and omissions, that we give ourselves 3 weeks to respond to this and have a deadline on Monday the 14th of April to invite councillors, Councillor Wiles is happy with this, to amend the draft, unless it's absolutely critical that we adopt it tonight.
Councillor Wiles.
Yeah, I have no objection to that. I mean, Appendix 1, just to be clear what our duties, discretionary duties and powers are. Dealing with young people is not a discretionary power or duty of this parish council. I mean, I can understand the ambition to do everything and to be all things to all people, but we have limited resources. The staff are stretched. You know, we talked about that earlier on tonight. We have to think about what we can do realistically. And one of the key themes of this is to try, having spent the last 2 years dealing with all the internal stuff, is to try to go outwards a bit more and to do things out there that the public see and appreciate. So we're talking about, you know, trying to encourage a Chamber of Commerce to do more outside the Guild Hall. But we have to be realistic about what we can and cannot do.
Thank you. So I think it's a proposal from Councillor Morehouse that we defer this to give a 3-week window. If we do that, could I ask councillors to take this seriously as an opportunity to provide, and it much better that actually a draft inclusion should be included rather than just a pointer to aid Councillor Wiles in terms of looking at that in earnest. So if we do that, then we would bring it back to the April meeting of the full town council. You happy to propose that?
So happy to provide. I would also like to thank Councillor Wiles for the endeavours that he's putting on this.
Seconding, Councillor Black, and we vote on that. Okay, thank you. Right, we've got one item left, thank you. Thank you. The final item is agenda item 20, is the STC funding panel report with recommendations. I would like to ask Councillor Wiles to introduce this on the basis that he was part of the panel that met. I believe did the Mayor chair the panel?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's absent, so that's why I've asked
The
Councillor
Mayor
Wiles.
did chair the panel. I think I'm the only person who was at the meeting.
Yeah.
Town Clerk was Councillor Carter, Councillor Ripley, and Councillor Pennington. How could I forget? And hopefully he will back me up. We looked at all the applications which are attached to the agenda. This was a short-term funding solution which Councillor Black led on with a group of other councillors, because we recognised that the Maddox Fund would not be up and running in the near future, and that the Tollbridge Fund, we'd already made a decision not to make any grant allocations this year. So this was a short-term solution to deal with some of those groups that needed funds at this stage and who would otherwise be in trouble if they didn't receive funding. So we went through all of the applications, we ranked them in order of priority or need in accordance with the criteria, and we came up with the proposed allocations which are set out in the report. So that's the district schools girls football application, which is only for £300. Folk and Ale Festival, which we felt was the premier event in the town within the events, for £2,000. Sandwich in Bloom, which I think most people recognise is providing a very important service within the town in terms of visuals and tourism and so on. And then the White Mill Heritage Centre, they made an application for a higher figure, but we settled on a figure of £1,000. And partly that was because they had other money, and also, if you remember, we gave them the granite sets, which were quite a significant financial contribution in kind. So those are the 4 proposed allocations that we're asking you to accept tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Black?
Thank you. Yes, I said I'd declare that I have an interest in it. Unfortunately, we don't have the matrix to see what scoring is. I'm a little bit concerned that the Rotary Club of Sandwich one, which was the defibrillator in St Clement's Church Hall, did not come forward. Problem there is that's very heavily used. It's very heavily used by groups that also engage in a lot of physical activity, things like the table tennis club, Fit for Life, and other activities. And the nearest defibrillator that we are aware of is in the Bell. So if we need one in a hurry, we ain't going to make it in time. But not seeing the matrix is impossible to understand quite what the situation is. But if there were any reconsiderations at all, I think I'd like to push that one towards a bit higher on the agenda if that were possible, but it may not be, and it may not have been an appropriate one. I've only read it once and it didn't have a lot of detail, I will accept.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we went through this procedure. We've been supplied with a matrix for ranking the proposals, and there was a large measure of agreement. There was one application on which there was some disagreement, which was the infant school. And in line with what I said earlier, I supported this, but I've been outvoted, so I think it's a shame that we didn't use all the money. I think the funds were there and that we could have helped a bit more, but I would commend this outcome to the committee, to the council.
Councillor Morris?
Yeah, the nearest defibrillator to St Clement's is actually in the fitness connection. It's one it was a problem.
Yeah, so
It's a
both
little
of them
bit
are fair distance way up.
But I would support it. I would support Councillor Black in suggesting that the defibrillator is quite a critical item to fund.
So, my personal, so my view would be that we did empower a panel to meet. They did use a scoring criteria that we agreed at STC. They also used a matrix to score each of the awards. So for tonight, I'd like to take forward the recommendations we've got in here. If there is any individual councillor regards anything that they feel needs to come back to a future meeting, then they need to investigate and prepare a report. But we did say this was a short-term fix, and it wasn't to use all the money, it was up to that amount. So I'd like to thank Councillor Wiles, Councillor Pennington and the others that were on that panel for doing what we asked them to do. And I'd like to propose that these 4 recommendations are agreed in this meeting. Would you like to second that? Councillor Morehouse? Would like to vote? Thank you very much. That's 1 abstention. Thank you. Okay. I'm pretty well, because I said we finish at 9. I think we are going to finish at 9. I was told I was optimistic, or overly optimistic. So, date meeting, the full council, 28th of April 2025 at 7 p.m. Thank you. I'm always good with my timing.